So now we're going to work on updating our projectile CPP file. And the first thing that we're going to need to do is, because we had just added this onHit function, what I'm going to do is copy this onHit function, what we typed over here, and I'm going to come over here and at the bottom paste it in here. And I need to add a couple things, because if you'll notice, like up here, right, they all have these where it's coming from, : and then the name. We need to copy that and paste it here, because what that is doing is saying that the definition of this, like this is a prototype and the definition is in another object. We do also have to change this to the curly braces. And so this is actually telling the system that we are making this function, and you can see how it's a void here, so I don't need a return. So this is actually a really good stump, is what they could call it. Basically, it's a function so that we could go compile our code, and so we could hit save all and then go compile it and make sure it works. So we hit the compile button and pray that we didn't have any typos and didn't do anything wrong. And it successfully compiled, not coded, compiled. So now, we successfully coded. And all we did basically was just add some definitions. That's it. But I always like the warm fuzzy of getting it to compile early and often, right? So now back in our code, what we're going to want to do first off is to update the constructor. So updating the constructor is this part right here, where it's basically the name twice in a row. This right here is a constructor. And what a constructor is, every time the code, like this class, is created, this will be called. And so that's where we're going to put the initialization of all of our variables and all of our information. So we have this that comes in default, but then we have the items that we made, right? So we have a collision sphere that we want, and we want to make this equal to create default sub-object, and it's a U-sphere component. And so that's what we're typecasting it to make sure it's that, with the text collision. And then we want to just give it some parameters, right? So collision sphere, and this arrow means that it's basically like what you would see of the collision sphere has parts to it, like in a class, and that we want to access those, like it has variables that are associated with that class. And so we're setting up some of the variable information, and so that's what we're doing. We're doing set sphere radius 15.0f. Did I spell collision sphere right? I think I spelled collision sphere right. And then collision sphere set collision profile name text projectile, and then root component equals collision sphere. And this is basically, we're just creating, right, we added the collision to our object, we added a collision sphere to our object, so that way we can detect when it actually hits something, right? So this is the collision, and we're going to do the same thing with a mesh. So that just means that we're going to have, we want it to look like something, right? So that's what the mesh is, if you remember. So it's going to be similar stuff. guys don't need to watch me type things, so I'm just going to copy and paste it because I have it written here once good. So this is going to be a mesh. But this one isn't the sphere component, right? It is the static mesh component. And then the mesh component setup attachment. And so that means we're just making it connected to the root component above us. Component. Spelling is hard. Component. And I think I might have typed it wrong here. Look, I did. And then we also need mesh component. And then set collision enabled, E collision enabled, no collision. Now, theoretically, this one we want it to be collision, right? This one we don't want it to be collision. And then we also need a projectile movement. Movement. And similar things, right? And instead of a static mesh component, it is going to be a projectile movement component. And it's not mesh, it is projectile. Oh no, movement. Movement. And we also need a max speed and B rotation follows velocity and projectile gravity scale. And so I always suggest, like I always say, is save early, and then we will open up our Unreal again and compile. And see, I have some typos and things are not working. Hence why I always say it's a good idea to do this. Wow, lots of typos. You know what I forgot to do? I forgot to include in my header information, or in my top, the includes that tell the system why it can have these. So that's what I left off. So I need a couple things. I need an include components, sphere component. I need include components, and I need static mesh. And I also need a game framework for the projectile. And last but not least, I need include Kismet gameplay statistics. Now we'll try it again of compile. Make sure everything's saved first. Close our compile window and try to open it again. Compile, and fingers crossed that we... So I still have a typo, but it's a whole lot less things than anything else. So no such file or things. Did I spell something wrong? Probably knowing me. Let's go back and look at our code. Let's see. Component. Oh yeah, components. How about components? Components. And look at that. We have nothing to test, but at least it worked. And so that's just another one of my suggestions again, right? So I've already got to 11 minutes. So what we're going to do is I will stop this now and pick it up in the next recording for the next part.